Welcome, everyone. We are live tonight. I am looking out the window and it is snowing. Yay! Yay, me! It's snowing. So, we're going to read and we're going to imagine, if we will. Perhaps you're sitting by a fireplace. I don't know where you are, but perhaps you're nice and cozy because I'm on the couch. I'm cozy looking out the window. Tonight's lecture by Neville Goddard: Esau, Jacob, and Israel. And this is from February the 12th, 1963. We are told by Paul in 2 Timothy 3:16 that all scripture is inspired by God and profitable for teaching, for reproof, for correction, and for training in righteousness. Well, the word righteousness is defined for us in the Encyclopedia Britannica as right thinking. And we're told all scripture, any section of it, any part of it. We're also told that it's a threefold cord that is not quickly broken. It's built like the ark on three levels: the physical, literal level, psychological, and spiritual levels. So tonight, we have taken three characters of scripture: Esau, Jacob, and Israel. I think I have broken this cord. In fact, I am convinced of it. And so I have to share with you tonight what I know of these three levels. They're not persons as we are, they are states of consciousness through which the immortal soul passes on its way to God. We read this story in the 25th chapter of the book of Genesis. We are told that Rebekah was childless and that she and Isaac prayed to God that they may be blessed with a child, and God responded. As we're told all through the Bible, this responds to a prayer for a child. In this case, they are twins. The Lord said unto her, two nations are in your womb, and two people born of you shall be divided. One shall be stronger than the other, and the elder shall serve the younger, which is verse 23. Now, here is a prophecy. Before they were brought into the world, it was prophesied which one would excel. Here is the predestination, and you cannot in any way interpret it in any other way. One is predestined to excel, and yet they are brought into the world. They haven't committed anything good or evil, and yet one was predestined to excel. Well, he is the younger, Jacob, the supplanter, and the first one, Esau, must serve him. But I tell you that these are states of consciousness, for we can take them on different levels. So we are told in Genesis chapter 25 that the first one came in and he was red all over, like a hairy mantle. And so they called his name Esau. His other names were Edom, like Adam, spelled in the same way. Aleph, Daleth, Mem, the red earth, the red being. But he was covered with hair all over. That is the first one who must now serve the younger. The second came out holding, taking his hands, the heel of the first, and he was called Jacob the supplanter. Then we are told that the first one was a hunter, a man of the field, and the second one was the smooth skinned lad who lived in a tent. So on this level, it is the outer and inner man. No matter how hairless you seem to be, just put a magnifying glass on the body, and you will see the body is completely covered in hair. You may call it fuzz, but it is hair. The most external thing in this world is the most external thing in this world of man is hair. Next would be skin. The second one had no hair. He was hairless. Well, that is the inner man. Putting it out in our language that you and I can understand and apply it. The outer man is the man of sense. I am in this room right now and everything seems so real, more real than anything else in this world. I know this room by reason of my bodily organs. My senses allow it, and my reason dictates it. So this is a fact. This is real, and all this is real. There is an inner man, and he is skilled in arranging things so that they lead to desired ends, not based upon the evidence of the senses at all. There is an inner man. So I stand here. I could desire to be elsewhere, and denying the evidence of my senses, denying reason, dare to assume that I am where I would like to be and rearrange the furniture of my mind. Instead of using this to tell me that I am here, I use other furniture, other objects of the mind. And here, I rearrange it and remain faithful to that state until it takes on the tones of reality, until it seems to be sensorially vivid. So when I open my eyes upon it, I am shocked to find I'm still here. That is the inner man called Jacob, the supplanter. He takes the place of the outer man. He supplanted his brother twice. First, he took his birthright, and then he took his blessing. So these are the two in conflict, and the whole story is one of conflict. But eventually, after unnumbered ages, Jacob will be given the name of Israel, a man after God's own heart. Can you grab my water out of my purse, please? It's in my purse. Sorry. Thank you. One moment, please. We'll go backwards just a little. It says, but eventually, after unnumbered ages, Jacob will be given the name of Israel, a man after God's own heart. It seems to come soon, but it doesn't really. No one knows the length of time between the awakening to these two states of consciousness and the fulfillment in the form of Israel. But we must read the Bible from all angles to see it. First, Esau is Edom. In the story of Job, the hero is an Edomite. All of the characters are Edomites, and the whole place is laid in Edom. Edom meaning red earth. We are told that the first one to make a name for himself by subjecting all the Edomites was named David. You see, you read it in the 8th chapter of the 2nd book of Samuel. And David subdued the Edomites and made for himself a name. He is the first king of Israel chosen by Jehovah. Saul was chosen by the people, but rejected by Jehovah. So here is one, David, chosen by Jehovah, the first king of Israel. Israel means a man after my own heart. Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no guile. What is guile? Guile would be deceit. Mm? Guile would be deceit. That's what he said when he saw Nathanael. And only the pure in heart can see God. So I have found David, a man after my own heart, one who could subdue the Edomites. Well, that comes away beyond this initial story of the appearance of two boys. You see, it is all in us. I am told, and you are told tonight, that it is possible that I could assume that I am the man that I would like to be. And if I dare to remain faithful to that assumption and not waver in it, just as though it were true, and to the degree that I am loyal to that assumption, it will crystallize and become a fact. I need not appeal to any person in the world to help it. I can do it all by myself if I know of the existence of the being in me who is skilled in arranging things so that it leads toward a desired end. How can I, or how would I, arrange the furniture of the mind to lead toward the desired end? Well, name the end first, for the end is where I begin. In my end is my beginning. So I name the end I would like to be, and I name it. Highlighting. Take a very simple story, a true story. A man who had never earned $20,000 a year. He'd never earned beyond 10. He was an engineer. And I said to him, "Where would you work if you made your 20,000?" He said, "I've picked out the job. They don't know it. But the building is on Madison Avenue. I know exactly the floor. I've ridden up in the elevator. I've gotten off on the floor. I've walked into the office, and I know where I would sit were it true that I worked there, where I would hang my hat, and were I to take off my coat, where I'd put it. I know exactly what I would do." I said, "Well, all right. Now just stand on that elevator and go up and get off at that floor. See it stop at that floor and get off. Walk right into the place, take off your hat, take off your jacket if you want to, and just simply be natural in the job." Within 2 weeks, he was on that job at $20,000 a year. And for 5 years, he traveled all over the Near East, aiding in the building of dams and all kinds of things after this last Second World War. One day, he didn't feel well. He closed his eyes and made his exit from this world. But he had 5 years of exercising Jacob. What does it matter when we go from this sphere? It doesn't really matter because he made his exit from this sphere. He discovered. So before he made his exit from this sphere, he discovered Jacob. And if there's evidence for a thing, what does it matter what you or I or anyone else thinks about it, or even wish about it? Many of you don't wish this thing to work, but it doesn't matter. If it works and there is evidence for it, that is all that matters. You see, but he proved it, and there is evidence for it. He proved it and lived it for 5 years. I can see him now sitting in my living room in New York City when we agreed on a certain technique of the rearrangement of the furniture of his mind. That he was not in some former job, he's now in the new job, and the job is on Madison Avenue. He gets off on a certain floor, and his income is $20,000 a year. And so that was just his salary. He had expenses. All these things were paid, traveling expenses and all other kinds of expenses. Maybe his job was worth 35,000 a year. I don't know. But I know his salary was 20 and he traveled all over the Near East building these fantastic things that he loved. I can multiply that by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of the exercising of Jacob. Jacob comes second. Bear this in mind. The whole vast world, 3 billion of us, we only know of the existence of Esau. You see, we know the man. He was born in a certain social structure, and that's it. He has no financial, social, intellectual, or other support behind him, and his life is rugged. That is Esau. That is Edom. And then comes this story. He is made aware of another one that's going to be brought forth, another one, and his name is Jacob, the supplanter. And you tell him what you would do, were you he, to achieve a certain goal. And he tries it and he does it. He doesn't always succeed. And quite often, having succeeded once, he forgets it and he goes back and serves Esau. Then comes that moment in time when he hits the third level, the spiritual level, and knows a thing to be literally true on the third level. All of these stories are literally true on the spiritual level. It's only on the psychological level that it's something different. Like, I stand here and I assume that I am elsewhere, and then I see the world as I would see it were I standing there physically. Then I open my eyes upon it, and there isn't any difference. Well, see, I'm shocked to find I'm not actually there, but I've done it. I have gone and prepared a place. Having gone and prepared the place, I return here. But I will now move across a bridge of incidents, a little series of events leading from where I am physically to where I am in consciousness. And it worked. I may forget it tomorrow when I get there because on reflection, it will seem so natural that I may say to myself, it would have worked anyway. This thing would have happened anyway. Look at all the things that happened in the interval, and therefore they would have happened in spite of what I did. So I may be inclined to forget that I actually determined the event by an imaginal act. So I try it again, and it works. Then I try it again. Then, as I try it and it works, I am becoming aware of Jacob. But what about Esau? Jacob wrestled all through the night of human darkness, human ignorance with the Lord himself, but he couldn't grant him what he asked for. He had to change his name before he could give him what he asked for, and he changed it from Jacob, the deceiving one. For he deceived his father in law, he deceived his brother, he deceived his father, he deceived everyone. But even though he deceived them, he was God's chosen vessel. I deceive myself when I stand here and persuade myself that I am elsewhere. I deceive myself when you tell me a story and I persuade myself that you are what you would like to be. So I forget what you told me that you are and only think of what you would like to be. You see, when I am self persuaded that you are such a person, well, I am self deceived. So Jacob is the deceiving one. He comes into the presence of his father and he has no hair, while his brother is all over with red hair. So, with the aid of Rebecca, the mother, he takes two goats, slaughters the goats, takes the hair and the skin, and covers his hands and covers the nape of his neck, and then puts on the robe of his brother that he may deceive his father when he comes into the father's presence. The father said, who are you? He said, I'm your son Esau. The father says, well, come closer. I cannot see you. Come closer that I may feel you. He comes closer. And as he comes closer, the father feels him and he says, you know, you feel like Esau, but your voice sounds like Jacob. And he said, no, I am your son Esau. And he persuaded the father to believe he was Esau. And the father gave him the blessing that belonged to Esau. Then, when the father had completed the act and could not now take it back, because God swears by himself and cannot take back his oath or change it, then Esau comes in from the hunt to discover the treachery and that he is well named. For twice he has taken from me and supplanted me. So the father gave him the blessing. I close myself by rearranging the structure of my mind, rearranging the furniture of the mind. I see myself and have you see me as I would like to be seen by you. And when I see you in my mind's eye, seeing me as you would see me were it true that I am what I am, assuming that I am, then I am reclothed. Now, to what degree can I fool myself? Hmm. To what degree can I actually become all the characters? You see, I'm playing other parts of Isaac, and let myself be Isaac, believing that what I'm doing is real and true. Can I believe in the reality of that imaginal act? Well, yes, I've done it unnumbered times and it worked. Whenever I do it with self persuasion to the point of acceptance, it worked. So I found my Jacob. But now there's another one. I've got to find Israel. Israel is on the highest level, one after God's own heart, a man without guile. But how do you find him? Well, there's nothing in this world you can do to find him. It is revealed. This is completely revealed. You can't go about bringing it to pass. It just happens. And this is how it happened to me. Listen, one night I saw these two fantastic creatures. I saw Esau, and Esau is just as he is described, covered from the crown of his head to the sole of his feet in red hair, just like a huge big ape. And here, Jacob, instead of being a man, well, Jacob is the most glorious female you could ever imagine. Here is an angel beyond angels. And here is Esau, this monstrous thing, thriving on violence, thriving on everything that is evil in this world, living on it. And I thought when I saw the two of them that they existed independent of my perception of them. I didn't know they did not. I did not know that I had never severed the umbilical cord, that they are my children. Well, I am the being spoken of as Rebecca. I am Rebecca who gave birth to those two. And one, the embodiment of every lovely thought that I have ever entertained. Every time I ever exercise my imagination lovingly on behalf of another, it simply energized this lovely creature. And every time that I acted or reacted violently, I fed and energized Esau. Looking at Esau, no one spoke to me. I had a desire. Without turning to anyone to ask their help or to pledge myself in their presence, and I pledged myself that I would redeem this monster if it took me eternity. Such a thing should not live in this world. And I gave him birth. In my ignorance, I gave him birth. This monstrous thing that fed and lived on violence and only violence. That in my blindness, he would whisper in my ear throughout the 24-hour day, yes, even in my dreams, and urge me to violence and urge me to react in the unlovely way. And then I saw what he was. I still did not know at that moment that he was not independent of my perception of him, but I pledged I would redeem him. At that very moment that I pledged I would redeem him if it took me eternity, I discovered that he was not an entity as you are. He was nothing more than an embodied force. It was all my misused and misspent energy throughout eternity. For here, this monstrous thing before my eyes melted and left no trace of ever having been present. But as it melted, all the energy that it embodied came to me. It returned to me who gave it. I have never felt such power in my life. Everything came back to me, and this glorious creature was the personification of all my noble acts, my lovely acts, and every loving thing I thought, every loving thought I ever entertained, fed her, and she glowed. And this one melted before my eyes. So I tell you, you will meet both of them. They're present now. You can't see them at the moment, but they are present. Wherever you go, they are present. But I tell you of them and ask you to exercise Jacob. Every time that you persuade yourself of something loving, something lovely, even though reason at the moment denies it, and your senses deny it, and everything denies it, To that degree that you are self persuaded, well, you are feeding this glorious creature and you are denying food to that monster. You see, it isn't his fault. We gave him birth. As the poet said, alas, two souls are housed within thy breast. One to heaven does aspire, and the other to earth does cling. So too are housed in the breast of every being. And that's part of the structure of this world. Everyone is bringing to birth these two, and they are invisible until that moment in time when you wrestle successfully with God and your name is changed from Jacob to Israel. Then you will know why David, the true king of Israel, was the first to make himself a name. He won a name for himself, being the first to subdue the Edomites. And you will see the Edomites embodied in a single man, and that being is a monster. His name is Esau, and you will redeem him, not by blows, as historians tell you, for they will tell you that he slaughtered in one night 18,000 Edomites. No, he doesn't slaughter any 18,000 Edomites as individual units. He conquered the whole of Edom by melting the embodiment of all of Esau. And when he melted the whole of Esau, he was a man after God's own heart. So we are told, I have found in David a man after my own heart, and he is mine forever. He's now my son, and I will do good for him. Acts 13:22. I will raise up now from this man after my own heart a son, who will come forth from his body. I will be his father, and he shall be my son. 2 Samuel 7, verse 12. And that one that is being brought forth from the body that is God's only begotten, who becomes in time the father of that son that has emerged, Christ Jesus. You're giving birth to Christ Jesus. Every being in the world has to give birth to him. When he gives birth to that Christ Jesus, that is the father of David. And David will call him my father, my Lord, and the rock of my salvation. Psalm 89:26. So every being in the world, because of this conflict within himself, is actually molding and shaping within himself Christ Jesus. So Paul tells us, I have travailed with you and continue in travail, in labor, until Christ be formed in you. Galatians 4, verse 19. When Christ is formed in you, it is because he comes from a heart, which is the heart of God. And so I have found in David a man after my own heart. So I ask you to try it. Try it tonight for a friend. If some friend needs a job, if some friend needs more money, and if some friend wants something that reason cannot imagine, assume that they are telling you that they have what they want. Don't raise a finger to make it so. Believe that what you have imagined is so, and go about your merry way, believing in the reality of your imaginal act. And to the degree that you are self persuaded of the reality of this imaginal act, to that degree, they will conform to it. Highlighting. The whole vast world on the outside is Edom, that is Esau, and the victory belongs to Jacob. It is prophesied that there are two nations within your womb, and two people born of you shall be divided. One shall be stronger than the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. This body, this physical body, is the elder. It comes first. So reason tells you it cannot be. Hmm? Reason tells you that what you want can't be. And your senses confirm that what reason dictates it can't be, it confirms it. Oh, you can't get a job. The market's too crazy. Inflation is too high. See? Your reason tells you you can't, and your senses confirm what your reason just said. But the prophecy is that the victory belongs to the younger. It belongs to Jacob. And Jacob is your ability, your skill in rearranging things so as to determine or predetermine an outcome. Oh, say it again, Angela, for those in the back. So your reason and your senses deny. You can't change. You're too old. You can't have more money in the bank. You don't know anybody. See? Reason and senses confirm one another that you can't do it. But the prophecy is that the victory belongs to the younger, it belongs to Jacob. Who is Jacob the supplanter? Your ability, your skill in rearranging things so as to determine or predetermine an outcome. Now, here's how you do it. How would I feel tonight were I rich? Fill in the blank. How would I feel tonight if I were employed gainfully? How would I feel tonight if I were in the most beautiful relationship? How would I feel tonight if my body were healthy and whole? You see, fill in the blank. How would I feel if? Here we go. Just name it. What would I see were it true? What would I see if I were rich? What would I see if I were healthy? In other words, what's the first thing you would do if you were healthy? You see that thing you can't do right now? You'd be doing it, would you not? So, well then, see it. How would I feel were it true? Well then, don't choke on it, feel it. What would I say to my friends were it true? Well then, say it. Not audibly, for this being is a psychological being. You say it inwardly. So you talk to yourself inwardly as though you spoke outwardly. You carry on these inner mental conversations from premises of what? Fulfilled desires. And you talk to all your friends from these premises. That is Jacob. But do it lovingly. The more that you do it lovingly, the nearer you are to meeting God in that successful wrestling match. Highlighting, highlighting. And so, one day, it is going to happen. And when it happens, you will say exactly what he said in the book of Genesis. I have seen God face to face, and yet my life is preserved. Well, here I stood in the presence of God, and I didn't know it. This is the house of the Lord, and I didn't know it. And so he takes the stone on which he slept that night and puts the stone down to mark the place of the house of God. And he calls it Bethel, the house of the Lord, the house of God. And in that dream, what did he see? He saw the contact between infinity and finite man. For here a ladder rested on earth and stretched to the heavens, and above it all stood God. He saw on that ladder ascending and descending gods. The Bible translates the word Elohim, angel. It's not angel, it's Elohim. He saw the gods rising and descending, and above it all stood the Lord. The Lord said to him, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. Genesis 28:12, Genesis 18, verse 32 and 30. Now, if you read it as a historical document, Abraham was not his father, Isaac was his father. If you read it through the eyes of the Spirit, the voice is telling the truth. Abraham is the father of all. We all come out of Abraham. And so here, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father. And now we go to the first verse of the book of Matthew, and this is the book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Matthew 1, verse 1. Here we find the nations all coming out of Abraham. All the promises are made to him. And then comes this most complex statement of the fight, the battle within man. Now, a question is asked because he is the Edomite of Edomites. His name is Job. He doesn't understand the conflict within him. Jehovah spoke to him and said, why should a mere man, couldn't see him? Well, then he asked these three very important questions. He said, did you know the period of gestation of the wild goat? Did you know the habits of the wild ass? Can you domesticate the wild ox? Job 39, verse 1. You read that and you wonder, well, what's that all about? What is it all about? And what beautiful imagery. For in my vision, I saw Christ as the ox, as the wild ass, and as the wild goat. Was not the wild goat the substitute for Isaac to sacrifice for the sin of the world? And he found the wild goat? Well, can you tell me the period of gestation of the wild goat? How long would it take Christ in man to really come to birth? Can you domesticate the wild ox? How long would it take you to take that wonderful imagination of yours and actually tame it? Oh, everything denies him. And so you go wild in your reactions. And so he still remains a wild ox. So can you domesticate the wild ox? And do you know the habits of the wild ass? Are we not told that a stupid man will get understanding when the wild ass's colt is born a man? Ooh, that's Job 11, verse 12. Everything in the world, a stupid man will get understanding when the wild ass's colt is born a man. And did he not ride on the ass into the most triumphant ride in the world in Jerusalem? I gotta say that one again. And did he not ride on the ass into the most triumphant ride in the world into Jerusalem? He came riding on an ass. He couldn't if he was still wild. He had to be controlled. He had to be domesticated and broken in. So he comes riding on that which he has broken in. What did what did he break in? His own wonderful human imagination. So take that imagination of yours, which is God, God in man. So no matter what the appearance seems to be, no matter what the appearance seems to be, what would you like it to be? Well, then, see it as though it were as you want it to be. Believe me, imagining creates reality, for all things are created by him. I tell you, I have proven to my own satisfaction that imagining creates reality. Therefore, if I know it and live by it, well, then I have found him. Then I too can ride triumphantly on this domesticated, wild, wild beast. Oh, I have to highlight. Eek, I've got to highlight. Okay. He was a wild beast, but no more. For the wild ass was given to us through man. And so Christ in man was wild, but man didn't know it. And then he starts the training process with the state of consciousness called Jacob. That's when he's given. So I have told you the story. I hope you believe it. You try it. Every time you try it, even if you fail, Jacob is being exercised. But may I tell you, ultimately, you cannot fail because it is predestined. Jacob cannot fail. A clue was given to us as to who he is when we see the one of the 12 sons he loved most. He loved Joseph most of all. For Joseph was the comfort of his old age. For Joseph was born to the woman he wanted most. But in his conflict, he had to marry Leah. Then, after he served 7 years, 7 for Leah, he was tricked. And as he had tricked the father in law tricked him. Hmm. I gotta highlight that line. Tell you why later. As he had tricked the father in law tricked him. And then he had to serve another 7 years, this time to get Rachel. Out of Rachel comes Joseph and his last, Benjamin. But Joseph was his love, the joy of his old age, and Joseph was a dreamer. Listen to the words, behold, this dreamer cometh. Let us shun him. Let us kill him. Genesis 37:19. So the purpose of the killing was what? He was a dreamer and the interpreter of dreams. He could not only dream, but also interpret dreams. Well, this faculty in man that dreams is man's imagination. And any interpreter of a dream is man's imagination. And so, behold, this dreamer cometh, let us kill him. And then Judah said, no, let us sell him to the Ishmaelite. Let us sell him to the Ishmaelite as the caravan moves on toward Egypt. And so they sold him, the dreamer. That is what everyone does in this world. But the dreamer rose to the heights of Pharaoh and saved them in their famine. When they saw food, it was Joseph who would save his father and save his own brothers. And so the dreamer in man will save you. And that is Joseph. But what a long period between that moment in time when they sold the dreamer into slavery and the one called David, who could bring down the giant and bring down the Edomite and make for himself the name of names in all of Israel, so that God would say of him, I have found a man after my own heart. But the day will come that you will prove every word I have told you this night. You will meet Esau, and he is just as I have described him, just as I experienced him, and you'll meet the most radiant being, and you know who she is. It doesn't make sense, but these two are not detached from you. They are formed in you, and at that moment in time, they seem to be external to you, but the umbilical cord has not been severed. And you will see they are holding embodied energy, one well used and the other misused. Instead of spending any time to correct that mistake right before your very eyes, it melted. But it does not vanish. All the energy held there returns to you. And then you know the words, nothing is lost in all my holy mountain. In all my wanderings, I have misspent so much that I thought it was lost, and yet nothing is lost. It was embodied in a monstrous thing, but then it came back, and all that energy that I had misused wasn't really wasted or lost. It returned. It only caused me frightful suffering in the interval when it first began to form within me, and I gave my whole body over and my life over to my senses, to my passions. based upon this garment that was hairy from head to foot. And then I began to work on something entirely different. A Jacob that was smooth skinned and that no one could see. And he was the supplanter. I heard about him and I began to trust him, and it worked. And then things worked. And then one day I saw that he was not forever an invisible state. He became a concrete reality. I saw him, and what beauty! And I saw Esau, but I redeemed Esau. Jacob does not need redeeming. And so I tell you, try it. It will not fail you. But these are the three states through which the immortal soul will pass. You are doing it now anyway. Everything that you have said within yourself this night as you go. If you said, well, I don't believe it. Well, it's perfectly all right. That's your privilege. But that is part of the feeling you give to these two that are now struggling within your womb. For long before they came out and you see them, the struggle is on because she asked the question, well, why is this so? Why am I alive if this fight is so within me? And then he answered and told her that there were two nations within her and the war is on. One will serve the other. He tells her exactly which will do which. The elder will serve the younger. The one who comes first, Esau, he comes out first. That's the elder. And here's the younger. And who is he? Jacob. What is Jacob's name? The supplanter. He supplants. He looks at the world. He doesn't like it. Like that vision I had on Fifth Avenue, looking at an empty lot, I would say, I remember when it was an empty lot. It still is an empty lot to my outer senses, but I am not using my outer senses. And then I would build a word picture for this lot as I desired the lot to be. And I would say, I remember when it was an empty lot. And yet, it still, to my outer senses, is an empty lot. But it's not to me, and not to those to whom I describe my dream for that so-called empty lot. That is exercising the inner man, exercising Jacob. And the day will come when? Well, God and only God will know, as your own wonderful being, for that's God. He sees the heart just as he wants it. He sees the heart just as he wants it. And you're wrestling all along with yourself. And one day, when he sees the heart, and the heart is owned by one called David, a man after my own heart, suddenly he sees Israel. And David is his son, his only begotten son. And David reveals to him who he is. And David reveals to him who he is, God the Father. Everyone will one day find David, a man after God's own heart. And David will reveal to you when you find him that you are the one he's been seeking all through eternity. You are God the Father. Now let us go in. He always goes into the silence there, but I do the questions. This first question is inaudible. What about the three other states? Moses, Elijah, and Jesus. By the way, that lecture is tomorrow. I think you'll be surprised when you hear that these states are which are the same three levels: the physical, the psychological, and the spiritual. These are the threefold cord that we're told in the fourth chapter of the 12th verse of Ecclesiastes. So Ecclesiastes 4, verse 12, it is not quickly broken. I can tell you from experience again that I have broken this cord. Are there any other questions, he says? So this next question is also inaudible. The person asks, well, what does it mean? I beheld Satan like lightning falling from heaven. That's when the disciples return, glorifying God and telling what marvelous things they did with the teaching. All kinds of people casting out the unlovely things in people. And then he rejoiced himself when he heard the great work that was being done by those that he had taught. And then he said, I beheld Satan falling like lightning from heaven. Luke 10, verse 8. Well, Satan is a state. Satan is only the embodiment of unbelief. He saw the entire thing fall because here it would have done nothing unless it was believed. According to your beliefs, be it done unto you. Your faith has made you whole. And so when the 70 returned, filled with good news about what they had done with the teaching, well, then he saw unbelief tumble from heaven. For heaven is within you, and therefore that exalted state within you that dictates audibly what you'll believe and what you will not believe. Then from that heavenly state, unbelief is cast out. Now, this next question is also inaudible, but I think he mentions it. He goes, did you hear the question? He says, the lady is equating this Jacob to seek ye first the kingdom of God. Well, Jacob, as we told you earlier, and practice this art of rearranging the structure of my mind. So I would equate it because we're all being raised into a world completely subject to our imaginative power. And in that world, where you are going, you need to ask no one to aid you in what you're going to do. But you start the practice here before you can see the forces. You cannot see them, but the forces are all around us. They're all around us, but we reach these two states. They are embodied. And may I tell you, you'll see them. The night I saw them, the night I saw him, I beat him. I was violent in my attempt to destroy him through violence. And then I not, and then I not loved him. This is Esau. I had compassion for him. And inward mercy flowed out of me because I realized I gave birth to him. And nothing so monstrous should have been brought into this world. And I, lost in my compassion for it, dissolved it. Highlighting. So I know beyond all doubt the greatest power in the world is love. It is love. Because I could have beaten him forever and he would only have grown on it. So today, the world, not knowing this power of love, may think they will destroy a seeming enemy through effort and through force and build bigger and bigger missiles to destroy it. They murder. They do all these things, and you will never destroy the enemy. Not with force, not in eternity. You can disarm him through mercy. Mercy is the greatest power in the world. Mercy is love in action. And so when I had mercy on this thing, when I had mercy on this thing, that infinite might that he seemed to embody dissolved before my eyes or dissolved before my face. So when people think they're going to really change the world through force, Well, they are keeping Esau alive. The final question was also inaudible, but it says a little female sheep. Really, if you break the word resh, it means spirit. It means spirit or wind and air. Hmm. So when people think they're going to change the world through force, well, they're simply keeping alive Esau. The final question. Resh means spirit or wind and air. It is power. But by definition, it is a EWE, female sheep, a little ewe lamb that's going to be sacrificed because she's giving birth to these. And the whole battle is in her. She wonders, why is this battle in my womb? What have I done? And she's told, there are two nations in you. There's two nations in you. And that Judah means praise. It means praise. It is the hand yod. And the word itself, Judah, means praise. See, that concludes the lecture, but let's go back. Let's go back. An inward mercy flowed out of me because I realized I gave birth to him. So you see what Neville is saying to you there? Do you see what he did? He used to judge a thing harshly. He used to judge it. But what did he have? And I, lost in my compassion for it, dissolved it. So this is why you don't judge yourself. You have compassion on yourself because you're the one giving birth to the situation, right? Let's go back. I highlighted, as he had tricked the father-in-law tricked him. As within, so without. I loved this analogy he talked about here, taming the wild ass. I just like to say the word ass, just to be honest. But taming the wild ass. What is the wild ass? Your imagination. It really is like a wild beast. They tell you the attention span is only about between 3 to 8 seconds, and then you're gone somewhere else. So the very fact that you can stay here and listen to this whole lecture is a testament to your skill to focus. See? Let's go all the way back. I also liked this one because when we go into the silence, you'll know where to put your mind. You can choose from any one of these. Because here's how we're going to do it to get into the silence. The whole vast world on the outside is Edom. The whole vast world on the outside is Edom or Esau. But the prophecy, you see, he says to you, how would I feel tonight if I were? What is it? Because when you go into the silence, this is what you're doing. What? Let's read it and answer the questions. And when you go into the silence, replay it. How would I feel tonight were I healthy, wealthy, Buddha? How would I feel? Hmm? You got that image? Good. How would I feel tonight if I were? Name it. What would I see if it were true? Then see what it would be that is true, that confirms. How would I feel were it true? Well, then feel it. Hmm. What would I say to my friends were it true? Well, then say that. But he's telling you not to do it audibly. Say it in your mind's eye. So now let us go into the silence. How would it feel? Name it. Hmm? Hmm. See it. How would I feel were it true? What would my friends say were it true? Well, then say it. Let us go into the silence for 5 minutes. And there concludes the 5 minutes. So remember, every night as you practice, what are you doing? Taming that wild ass. That's what you're doing. Your imagination. So that when you sit and think about something, you're only thinking of the lovely and the way how, not how you're afraid of it going, but you are thinking of it and feeling it in your body as going the way you want it to go. See? So that over time, you only ever think of the lovely anyway. And with that, my beautiful friends, I thank you for spending this time with us on this. Ooh, look at that. My car is covered in snow. With that, Lil Bid and my boy, we bid you good night. Much love to each and every one of you. Yes, much love to each and every one of you. Lucky, can you hear me now? Let me know. Anyhow, I love you, each and every one of you. Good night. Countdown initiated. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Much love. Much love.